The Mandalorian is a first for Star Wars, a streaming series show released on Disney Plus with 8 episodes, and whether it was from its very first episode to now with the explosive season finale, from a certain point of view, I think it's fair to say it's taken a lot of the Star Wars fandom by storm, and this is for so many reasons, and while looking around, it feels as though that a majority of the fandom's feelings are that it's one of the best things to come out of Star Wars in a long time. Now, as for the title of this video, or even just what I said, this is subjective of course, but also just me kicking back and taking a wider look at the picture of the Star Wars fandom from outside the box. Now, many of you may agree, and some of you may not. I don't intend for this video or title to lay claim or assert perspective as fact over what you may feel differently about with what we have got from Star Wars in recent years, because, you know, at the end of the day, everyone feels differently. But the focal point with this discussion is that no matter what, in recent years, Star Wars under the acquisition of Disney has become something both great to many fans, but also just as there is a light side, there is a dark side, where others will feel differently, and I think it's important to preface a bit of that before we continue. With Disney acquiring Star Wars in 2012, at this point looking back, we've had Star Wars Rebels, a Star Wars story or two, even the return of Clone Wars, and canonical novels and various comic book series to help flesh out the gaps of the Star Wars timeline. But at the bottom line, the sequel trilogy and how things have unfolded in the past 6 years will be and is what the vast majority of people will judge the state of things by, and I think I can safely say that unless you've been living on Dagobah, things haven't run so smoothly. And I mean, this has even been admitted in various forms or another from Bob Iger himself, saying that they have released too many Star Wars films over a short period of time, less is more. In other cracks here and there, things have been said by various icons tied to Star Wars, but you know, you get the point. Star Wars fans haven't exactly been united when it came to Star Wars under Disney, and I think that mainly comes down to the critique and debate of the most important story of all, which of course is the Skywalker Saga. And after all, this was the story that George Lucas first conceived when it came to a galaxy far, far away. I mean, I don't think there's nearly as much issues when it came to the Star Wars story spin-off films such as Rogue One. Rebels has its own audience to enjoy it, same with Clone Wars, same with other tales from novels and comic books. But the Skywalker Saga is the big cheese. I think a lot of us can agree on that, and that's the one mostly all types of fans, from general audience, diehard fans, to people who just like, I don't really care, but I'm going to see it anyway. Like, that's the story most people will pay attention to. So with The Force Awakens, some felt it played too safe and mirrored A New Hope too much, but at least it was, for most, a safe foundation with a lot of setup for where things could go in episode 8 or 9. Rogue One, at least for me, is a decent film. Solo, I feel the same, unnecessary to a degree, but still a decent film, but suffered due to the backlash of The Last Jedi. But then a little thing came along called The Mandalorian, and more so than ever before in recent years, there was a lot more positive than negative reactions to this new Star Wars adventure. But why, like seriously, why is that? What makes The Mandalorian so good to a lot of fans? I mean, surely it's just not about Baby Yoda. That can't be all what it's about. I mean, some of you may think that, but you know what I mean. So The Mandalorian offers this behind the curtains look at the state of the Star Wars universe 5 years after the events of Return of the Jedi, where the Empire has been defeated, but the New Republic has only just begun to assert their resolve and control, and as a result of that doesn't really have a whole bunch of authority in the galaxy. Now this offers a unique and exciting time to explore in the style of a space western, as the galaxy is somewhat of a lawless place. Even those within the show on various worlds who weren't necessarily fans of the Empire feel that now they've been defeated, things actually might be worse. I mean, like, you know, at least there was control and stability with the Empire, and now it's just pretty lawless. And I think for a large part, The Mandalorian is a series that can be enjoyed by everyone, regardless your stance on recent Star Wars, whether that is fans who are totally on board with the way Star Wars has been played out in recent years, or whether it's just a pleasant surprise for those who feel slighted by certain decisions, and in doing so have stigmatized stigmatized Disney Star Wars. The best example of that being the plot of The Last Jedi, which definitely fractured the fandom into a place of those who loved it and those who just don't even regard it as a Star Wars film, as Rian Johnson definitely succeeded in most certainly subverting fans' expectations. And, whether that's in a good way or a bad way, that's up to you. And now with the conclusion with the Rise of Skywalker, you can love it or hate it or just feel somewhere in the middle, feeling like due to the roadmap or seemingly lack thereof of the sequel trilogy, it was an attempt at pleasing all audiences on their way out the exit door from this story. But I feel like The Mandalorian also caters highly to what a lot of those fans grew up with from the original Star Wars films, and from where I look at things, I feel like that area of Star Wars fans are those who feel the least on board with the decisions made in recent years. But what The Mandalorian offers to both sides of the Star Wars fandom is a blend and the best of both worlds, a new chance and opportunity without all the white noise and bickering that we've all been hearing since The Force Awakens came out. But even that was a far cry from The Last Jedi's conversation. This isn't to say, by the way, that fans of the original films haven't or can't enjoy the sequels. I say this more from a standpoint that Disney seems to have figured out and opened up a new avenue that involves an intriguing time setting and safe play to tell a story that is disconnected from the mixed opinions and squabble of the Skywalker Saga. And I believe that's the most important thing of all, that there is something being put out there to all sides of the fandom that can for the most part agree and enjoy together. And that's the key. This is the path to the unity of the Star Wars fandom, in my opinion, and just the best direction, and to be honest, only direction Star Wars can and should go at this point. And of course, this video only exists because guess what? The Mandalorian is a good, great show. I wouldn't be making this video if it was some awfully pieced together series, which would totally defeat the point of me observing this new direction from Disney, which appears to be strategically yet slowly uniting fans in the long run. Most importantly, it's the right direction. The Mandalorian comes to our screens with the quality that you would expect from that of a Star Wars film, but also with characters and a story that demonstrates the best of Star Wars, but in also new ways that we haven't really even seen before, such as a Mandalorian who is roaming around the galaxy with a child of Yoda's species, also offering moments of incredible action, but also diving into exciting lore of the creed of the Mandalorians that hasn't been explored before in live action, which intrigues already knowing fans, whether that's from what we know from Legends, hopefully being adapted into canon in some form or another, or just canonized stuff from like Star Wars Rebels, to attracting new fans from the mention of a Mandalorian and their people. And now that season 1 is over and having reviewed all 8 episodes on this channel, by the way, if you're interested in that, I have a playlist, I feel as though it was a very solid first season and direction for Star Wars. However, one of the most debated things I hear about with The Mandalorian is actually what I enjoy most about the series, in that it isn't necessarily heavily main plot focused each and every episode. I mean, in fact, there are multiple episodes where it seems to have taken a break from what any show has, like, whether that's the main villain, the main objective, or whatever. But as I've said, what those in-between episodes bring to the table is an insight into the Star Wars universe that we just don't see a lot of, which also form interesting mini-stories, all while simultaneously, I mean, of course, a lot of people might not think this, develop the main character and introduce new characters that will reoccur throughout the series. Some examples of this being episode 4, and where a village is under the threat of an abandoned AT-ST walker that was, just left there from the days of the Empire. This episode helps develop the Mandalorian through showing his desire yet restraint at the prospect of having a peaceful life, which is already different from the guy we see in the first couple of episodes. Or in episode 5, where the Mandalorian ship is in need of repair as he landed on Tatooine, and the duration of that episode saw him accompanying an aspiring bounty hunter on a job, which actually let us revisit Mos Eisley Spaceport post Return of the Jedi, which to me is freaking awesome. And this episode demonstrated the slow changes yet again in the morality of the Mandalorian that he's been going through up until this point in the series, even further, all while at the same time, which I've said a couple of times already, it's just awesome. It's so awesome seeing these familiar places or new places from other characters point of views other than the Skywalker Saga. And then we had episode 6, which surrounded a jailbreak on a New Republic ship, which the Mandalorian ran with a former crew, which brought up some of his past, and just ultimately, while all of these episodes didn't directly connect to the main story that was established in the first couple of episodes, they're still important, they're still very entertaining, and as a Star Wars fan, I want to see more of this. I think it's great, and with the return of the main plot towards the back end of the season, things only got even more exciting. I mean, especially if you finish this, you will know what I mean with the way that first season ended. I mean, just wow. But hey, back to the point at hand. This is a show that I see uniting Star Wars fans more than I see freaking debates about it, and that's really refreshing to see. I think Disney has only just begun to crack the formula of what works best with their Star Wars. By the point of where I'm talking in this video, they've already spoken about re-strategizing their approach to Star Wars, and The Mandalorian seems to be that first step. They have also paused on future Star Wars movies. They're still coming out, but they're not going to spew them out like they initially decided to do. They're even turning the Obi-Wan Solo film into a Disney Plus series now to explore Obi-Wan's time in between Revenge of the Sith and Episode 4, which I can only assume will adopt a similar format to The Mandalorian, and do I need to express how excited about that I am? I mean, I don't think I do. I mean, anyone feel me there? And as for more in the future, Kathleen Kennedy has said herself that a Knights of the Old Republic venture is something that is definitely being spoken about. In fact, in her own words, that they actually talk about it all the time, and that they're developing something to look at. As for what format that will be, a Disney Plus series, a singular movie, a trilogy of them, you know, it remains to be seen. But once again, something that I read between the lines here is that these new stories are key. Granted, Knights of the Old Republic would be adapted, and maybe that shouldn't be the way it's done. Perhaps it would just be set in the Knights of the Old Republic timeline, something brand new. That could be amazing. But as Kathleen Kennedy also said herself, I mean, despite what you may think about her, now that the Skywalker Saga is being left behind, it's allowing Disney this appropriate time as an opportunity to see where they're going. And from my eyes, of course I can't guarantee this, but with The Mandalorian taking huge steps in the right direction, I believe it's paving a way for Star Wars fans to once again be excited about what is coming. I mean, it's already begun to unite fans, and hopefully the projects they will release in the future will mirror that of the success of what The Mandalorian has already achieved. It's not a cure-all for the Star Wars fandom, but most certainly in my books, a step in the right direction. But with that being said and done, guys, I mean, I would love to hear what you thought of the Mandalorian series as a whole. I know everyone has different opinions here, but do you feel in the future of Star Wars, now that the Skywalker Saga has been left behind us, that new good ground is being tread by Disney with shows such as The Mandalorian being, you know, quite, I think it's fair to say, like, more fans on both sides of the fractured fandom, so to speak, are happier and conversing and kind of united about one thing, whereas before in previous years it's been fairly here and there. So let me know down in the comments below if you think like me that The Mandalorian was a huge important step towards Star Wars regaining its greatness. And when I say greatness, you may already think it's great, but just overall on all sides of the fandom. That's the point of this video. But other than that, everyone, like this video if you enjoyed it. Why not subscribe for more Star Wars videos just like this? I'd really appreciate that. But other than that, everyone, check out my past couple of videos appearing on the screen, and may the Force be with you always.